Pallantier reporting third quarter results above expectations in a big way. The company issued better than expected fourth quarter guidance. Shares down in the pre-market this morning. We'll talk about that as well. But joining us right now is somebody we've been talking about, frankly, all morning. Alex Karp is with us, Pallantier CEO. Alex, it is so good to see you this morning. We had your biographer on the broadcast before, and we're speaking about you now in third person, but now we're doing it in first person. The earnings were a blowout, I think, across the board. We can talk about maybe why the stock market reacting the way it is. But, you know, I was listening to the call yesterday, and I wanted to, just for those who didn't get an opportunity to hear it, I think you made some fascinating points about why you think this company and maybe even yourself are so misunderstood.
Well, there are lots of easy ways to misunderstand me. I misunderstand myself, and, you know, it's not like the super conventional playbook thing. Look, we're an anti-playbook company. If you want to do the personal version, I'm like this dyslexic, formerly, and I believe currently still left of center, who actually sticks up for progressive values, which triggers, you know, TDS loving people, because I think the Democrats aren't no longer progressive. And then the company is built in a truly sui generis, unique way, which would only be possible in America, and actually explodes every assumption of how an expert would build a software business. The more you actually know about building software, the more odd, unique, and inexplicable our rise in success, and I would say domination on the enterprise software battlefield looks and is. And then I would say one of my main issues is Pallantier, because we called a lot of things that are kind of establishment views that often are viewed as kind of being super woke into question in every single assumption of Pallantier. The people who piled in to Pallantier were people investing their own money, often people who are not in the investor class, non-experts. And even till today, the experts sit on the sideline and say, hey, this can't be true, while the average American who invested in Pallantier, and for the first time, maybe arguably since World War II, average Americans got venture returns investing in Pallantier. So you have this massive divide between the average person who evaluated themselves and the expert class that still was working on assumptions that have historically not been true, that obviously, if you look at the earnings, if you actually look at, we grew the company, I mean, I'll go through if you want to go through numbers, but extraordinary results, yep. And then the expert class is weak-kneed, and the retail people are all in. So, but in fairness,
but that's what I wanted to ask you about in terms of because there is a misunderstanding. Clearly, you know, you look at the analysts. Most analysts, you know, think that this stock is overpriced. You have people like Maichlberry out there shorting it. Everybody who's shorted this stock thus far has been on the losing end of it. And I'm trying to understand, just from, if you look at sort of the growth trajectory, the sales, how much of the sales, frankly, I think actually even there was a huge part coming from even existing customers, and just what the scale of this thing ultimately looks like in your mind.
Okay, there are two parts. You know, of course, when I hear short sellers attacking what I believe is clearly the most important software company in America, and therefore in the world in terms of our impact, simply to make money, and trying to call the AI revolution into question, where we have this anomalous numbers, 114, rule of 40, et cetera. It just is super triggering, because these people, they could pick on any company in the world. They have to pick on the one that actually helps people, that actually has made money for the average person, that is actually supporting our warfighters. Why do they have to go after us? And I'll tell you what, though, it's crazy motivating, because I'll tell you why the short sellers are constantly getting screwed by Pallantier. Because every time they short us, we just are like tripling down on getting the better numbers, and part, honestly, to make them poorer. But okay, so the question of like the actual power of the business and what is it worth? I mean, at the end of the day, one of the things that is actually in the book, the biography, and that I actually think you always have to ask is the person persuasive or are they right? And across all sorts of movements, political, I mean, you see this on the regressive part of the Democratic Party. We're about to probably have a complete disaster. I was born in New York. But if you actually said, do these things actually work? Everyone's like, of course I'm not going to vote for that. But instead they ask, does it work in theory? The theoreticians, you have to ask, how often have you been right? And Pallantier is about pragmatic decisions that create unfair advantages for America and its allies. And on that, we've been right for almost 20 years on all major decisions, and I believe we'll be right going forward. Now, you could argue, I don't know, like they're constantly like, but they thought Palantir was overvalued at 10. They thought it was overvalued at 20. I'm not even here saying what the valuation is. I'm just saying find a company in the world that has a rule of 114, that has U.S. commercial growing at 121%, that aggregate growth in the U.S. is 77%, that has throwing off free cash flow in a way that's anomalous, and that is fully aligned with our customers. And you figure out the value, but they're in the business of being skeptical and being wrong, and we're in the business of giving an unfair advantage to American workers, American warfighters, and our investors.
Being short is a very difficult place to be because you can lose everything, right? You can drive these people into the ground.
Thank God.
Like that. Michael put a really big bet on it. It's almost $1 billion. It's $912 million. That's a big step for him to put into that. When you say you redouble your efforts, what do you do? What do you go back in?
Well, first of all, it's like he's actually putting a short on AI. So the way I read it was us and NVIDIA, and it's like
he's the biggest position is you, though. I'm just looking through all of his shorts.
Great. Okay. So, and then, by the way, with the shorts, it's very complex. It's not even clear that, honestly, I think what is going on here is market manipulation. We delivered the best results anyone's ever seen. It's not even clear he's not doing this to get out of his position. I mean, these people, they claim to be ethical, but, like they're actually shorting one of the great businesses of the world. And I'm not against shorting as a matter of theory, but I'm just saying pick something that is not doing a noble task. And, it's us against them. And that's a good position for us. I mean, look, when you're printing a rule of 114, again, people who aren't technical, I think roughly an incredible score, like an Olympic grade score on rule of 14 is like 50. I mean, that's roughly like if you're between 50 and 7, you're an Olympic athlete, a unique implement athlete. This is like Michael Phelps-like score, like Michael Jordan. Like there are no scores like this. And 121 growth off of almost a 1.5 run rate in U.S. commercial, and a 77% growth in the U.S., and an aggregate off of an aggregate base of $4.5 billion. By the way, I predicted we'd get here. So, it's like if you want to short that, be my guest. You go ahead. We're just going to go do our things. I mean, look, I'll tell you, there's a tale of two cities in our society. We need experts versus retail. And you see it like, I don't know why these newspapers are helping Mandani win. I don't know why we can't have honest discussions about our future. I don't know why we have to allow fentanyl attack. But it's almost always sympathy for the expert that doesn't need it. The short seller that has some ridiculous reason for doing something against, most of GDP growth in this country is because of AI. The real question is, how do we grow that and expose workers? What is the worker available GDP? That's the question for our society. Instead of aligning on that, we've got these completely, and again, if the numbers weren't there, great, be my guest. But then the numbers are there. So then it's not even clear he's actually shorting us. It's probably just, how do I get my position out and not look like a fool? I don't know. But I do think this behavior is egregious, and I'm going to be dancing around when it's proven wrong.